Okay, so in the various situations we've seen, there are a variety of different things that we're given to start off with, some of which are better than others. So we could start off with a graph of our quadratic function. We could start off with just the function, or in some cases multiple functions, or we could just be given a data set. Okay, those are kind of the three different things that we've been given to start off with, and then questions have been asked from us following that. So what would be a good idea right now is to go through and for each of these situations make a step-by-step process or kind of protocol for how you would then understand the situation better, and then kind of go through answering the questions. All right, so let's talk about first if you're given a graph. So here, we've talked a lot about how visualizing the function is really important. If you're already given a graph, that's super helpful, right? And so if you're given a graph, the next step should be to label those key characteristics that we've talked about. And then once you've labeled those key characteristics, you should have a pretty clear idea of the really important points of the function itself. And so along with labeling key characteristics, now in order to make sense of those points, you'll also need to make sure that you are labeling the axes of the graph as well. So key characteristics and axes, right? Or in other words, this is just understanding what the independent/dependent variables represent. And then once you've done that, then you can move into answering the questions, right? So using, our understand, make a plan, and then answering those questions in full and complete sentences. That's really important, all right? For given a function, so if we're just given the function or functions, there's a couple of different things we could do. So if we're just given a function on its own, what we'll need to do is create a graph, right? So then the next step is to graph it. Okay? And then once we've graphed it, then we can go through, we have a graph, key characteristics and axes, and then answer the questions. If we're given multiple functions and asked to create a new function, we might have to create a new function before we can graph. So I'm just going to put in here, if we're given multiple functions, then we might need to create a new function. Think about the profit function, right? Create a new function. And then we can graph it, okay? And thirdly, if we're given a data set, before we can graph anything, we need to actually know, first off, what type of a function might model this data set. So this is where we're deciding between linear and quadratic. Linear versus quadratic. And then once we've decided which one, then we need to fit the function. And we can do this using our calculator. Fit the function using the calculator. And then once we have fit the function, that means we now have the function, right? Then we can go back and create a graph, label the key characteristics, and answer the questions. So what is the big common theme that you're noticing? Yes, you guessed it. We are going to want to graph, right? I guess let me say this. After we fit the function, then we want to graph. So regardless, our goal is to graph the function, because once we've graphed it, we understand the key characteristics a lot better, and so that will allow us to answer questions much more easily. So before we jump into the questions, it's important that we have a graph and a visual representation so that we can then more clearly understand what the questions are asking us to find and how those relate to the function itself. Okay, so this is a good place to just kind of collect your thoughts and make sure that you know the progression and how no matter what you're going to want to graph the function. And certainly you can look back in your notes to find the kind of criteria that we have and the method for efficiently graphing a quadratic function, and you can practice that on your own. So what follows is a couple of questions to help you kind of prepare and get ready for the quiz on Monday or Tuesday, depending on when you're taking it. All right, here's a question that I offered as an optional question, but I'm not sure if people got a chance to copy it down. So I'm going to put it up here again, try this on your own, and I'm going to post the solution as well. All right, so here are the solutions. What I want you to take careful note of is the order in which I went about doing this. I realized that I was given a couple of different functions, a revenue function and a cost function. So I thought, okay, I'm going to probably need to create a new function, which is correct. I created a profit function, and then I actually updated my profit function. So once I had my finished product, I then, before going on to the next question, went and graphed this function. And so notice that I went through my graphing protocol, which is to find the roots, go back and look at your perfect sentence that you wrote about what the roots are and how to find them, then found the vertex. Notice that the vertex actually shows up, the x value where my vertex is actually shows up in my computation of the roots. It's a part of the quadratic formula. And so I kind of kill two birds with one stone there. Find the x value by vertex, and then the y value by plugging into the function. Okay, and that allows me to answer this next question much more easily. All right? So that's a key piece. Make sure that you get some practice with this. Go back and graph the functions that we've already looked at without looking at your finished solution. And if you want to check your work, you can go take a look. You can go graph it on your calculator, or if you go to wolframalpha.com, you can actually graph the function there just by saying graph and then typing in the function. So go ahead and give that a try if need be. I'm going to put one or two more questions up for you to practice on. All right, this is a pretty cool question about throwing two javelins. It's one that I also provided as an optional question, and would be a really good one to test both your graphing ability but also just your sense-making ability. So follow that protocol that we had. If you are looking for a question that is sort of similar or can kind of help you guide you along with this one, go and take a look at that first question that we tackled in class last week about the soccer kicks. Remember to follow your protocol here. So question A actually tells you to sketch a graph of both rows and to label the key characteristics, so it helps you out there. But that certainly is going to be very good for prepping you for the quiz. I'm not going to provide the solutions for this. I want to encourage you to work to a point where you're satisfied with your solution. Check your answer. Does it make sense in terms of real life? And now I'm going to put one more question up here that's sort of a little bit of a challenge because it's kind of a different looking question, but would be fun for you to try. Alright, here's the braking distance problem. It's a very good problem, particularly just to give you a kind of a different look. Some situation which involves a quadratic function. So go ahead and give this one a try on your own, particularly if you're looking for a challenge. Collaborate with other classmates too to make sure that you are on the right track. And don't forget, right, just because this might be a little different looking of a problem doesn't mean we cannot still apply the same methods that we have before. So if you need to, go back and review your protocol for our problem solving. Make sure that you understand it, that you have a plan for each piece before you get into it, and that you check your work to make sure it's reasonable, right? Worst case scenario, you say, hey, my work doesn't make sense, here's why, here's the type of answer I would expect, and at least you're doing yourself a service by not trying to sell a totally incorrect answer. I'm going to post the solutions to this, not how to get them, but just a couple of solutions so that you can sort of check your work. So try this out, press pause, and then in about 5 seconds I'll post the solutions. Okay, so here are the answers. You can use them to check your work. Hope that this was helpful for you. If you need any additional practice, go back and rework the problems that we've gone over or worked through in class. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or stop by before school.